Transform Empowerment for Action Initiative is a non-governmental organization whose primary responsibility is to ensure we focus on democratic governance, human rights, and research. In our democratic and governance program, we did receive resources from Uraia, specifically to work with the women ahead of the general election 2017. We found it important to identify women to push the agenda of democratization process and also gender mainstreaming. And because of that, we did advertise to get serious women aspirants who could vie for different positions. Then we did a shortlist, and after shortlist, we did identify women from Migori, Kisii, Kisumu, Nyamira, Siaya, and Homa Bay. These women were subjected to a thorough audit. Then we designed program trainings for them, where we trained them in community organizing, campaign strategy, how do they handle propaganda, and how do they mobilize resources.
Okay, I wouldn't say it was me who decided to vie, really. I think I was just so used to hanging out with the locals, and I used to see a lot of shortcomings and just things that were going wrong, and I would talk with them and I would be like, why is this not happening? Why don't we have good roads? Why don't we have electricity in this day and age? And then people just decided that you need to be the one in the front line to make sure that we actually get these things. So that's how I ended up vying. It was nothing, it was not premeditated, it wasn't well thought of, but that's really how it went.
When I looked at my county member of assembly, my ward representative, and the kind of work that was going on in my ward, especially in the line of education, I felt I would do much, much better. And this was an encouragement to me to continue with the community work I was doing while at SOS, but at a different level. In SOS, I had a small area within which I was confined to work, the way organizations work with different policies. Although in terms of education, I went outside that boundary and reached more schools, more children. But from that, I got the courage, I got the psyche, and got into politics in 2015.
I didn't really have time to consult with them, except for my mom. But I told my mom like 6 months after I was in campaign. And of course, she was like, Sally, number one, that is your home area. That is where you come from. There's no way you'll ever be elected. Number two, you'll be dished out a lot of insults that just the insults themselves will make you not think about vying. But at that time, it was already too late. I was already so much into campaigning, and I felt if I stopped then, I would really be letting a lot of people down who had maybe banked hopes on me. So I just decided, you know what, I'll just take my chances.
To be sincere, my being in politics is a shock to many people to date, because naturally I'm a soft-spoken person. I was far away from politics. I never participated in campaigning for people. I always went, voted, and came back home to see how the results were being done. So it's been a worry even to some of my relatives whether I'm going to survive in it currently, and it was also their worry whether I would survive in it during campaigns. For my husband, it was a real shock to him, and it took him long to accept this. And we had to go through our church pastor for counseling sessions for him to get convinced. And the pastor was like, Judy, unless your husband says yes, I will not allow you to get into politics. In coming up with my campaign team, selection and organization, it was a bit tricky, but I looked at my vision for the ward, which is having a healthy central Kisumu ward. That meant that I go for people who would help me reach that or realize my vision for the world. So I looked at women and youth who had been involved in politics previously, I looked at strongholds of my opponents, those who are involved in politics previously, and those are the people I went for. I had teachers in my campaign team, I had doctors, I had farmers, I had politicians, I had those who can just make noise, with your name and seeing you everywhere so that you are known. So bringing all of them together. And again, there are also people who are just in charge of giving you ideas, giving you guidance, given that it was my very first time.
Settling for a campaign team is a little tricky because human beings are so bad. Human beings will tell you one thing and do the other, and they'll say they support you. It's always about money. You will think you have a good campaign team, and you'll actually meet people who are very strong on the ground, but unfortunately they're not true. But I identified a couple of people in my ward. I have 6 sub-locations. So I identified strong individuals that I felt gelled with me, and we actually they were incorporated in my vision and my mission. And after identifying a couple of them, we just sat down, formed a committee, and there was no secrecy and anything. But at times you also listen to your instincts, which I normally do. I normally, if I don't bond with you, then there's something. And if I bond with you, then, I know that you're the right person to work with. And a lot of them fell off at one point. I think I lost a couple, but majority of them stayed with me, and they're still with me up to this very moment.
My strategy was basically to have the best campaign team, most united and focused, like I have just said. So in terms of resource mobilization, I must say that women, we are so much challenged, or we are not well placed in terms of finances during campaigns. You find it a big challenge for women. The men, I don't know how in one way or the other they get money, because like for a woman, a man can easily get his title deed or family title deed to the bank and get money. But for me, I have to ask my husband or maybe my father-in-law to get their consent before I use that. And so if you don't have money as a woman, you don't have money. And for me, it was also a big challenge because I left work prematurely, like I said, like I mentioned. And because of that, and being my very first time in politics, I also, initial stages, I met people who intentionally misled me, and we misused the resources we had. And within a short period of time before the campaign period got into its peak, I was down financially. And so in terms of resource mobilization, my team, I really appreciate them because we always came as a group, as a family. And if there was anything we wanted to do, then we contributed money. All the members, we would suggest how much we wanted to use and how much every person could contribute. But that was after I had also given what I was having at hand for them to now top up. When I said that my team had doctors, had teachers, had farmers, the farmers would even bring me food at home. The doctors, anywhere we were, if we met anybody sick, then they would prescribe. And if possible, we would buy medicine, contribute money there and then buy medicine and give whoever is unwell.
So after I convinced my people, then we identified our locations. Then I had to know the villages in the area. I needed to know who the clan elders were in my areas. And then I also needed to identify who are the strong people. They might not necessarily be clan elders. They might not necessarily be anything. But people listen to them when they speak. I would listen to what they were saying, and I would turn a lot of the things the issues that people had. I would now internalize them and see how to bring them to my advantage. And there's you can always gain from negative criticism and positive criticism. You can always turn those things around to use them to your favor. And then the other strategy, of course, shaking hands, because it breaks some bonds, and it brings you closer. So I learned fairly quickly that I needed them to accept me. I needed them to know that I'm one of them. So the handshake was and simplicity. They felt that, wow, she's so simple. She's just like one of us. And that's what they said. It's not even me. I would hear them saying, she's just one of us. That is our girl. I'm giving her my vote. She's so simple. She doesn't disrespect us in any way. She doesn't do this. So yeah, those are some of the things that I did. And then of course, capacity buildings from team. Team actually, you know what's crazy? Team is the only organization, and I think through George, who actually believed that, or he saw something in me that maybe he felt that I would actually win. But I went to a couple, but because of course people view me as somebody who hasn't lived there, that is our home. There's no way I would ever be voted for. So nobody ever believed that I could do it. Nobody ever believed in me except for Tim and George, because he called me for 3 other trainings. I told my mom like 6 months after I was in campaign, and of course she was like, Sally, number one, that is your home area. That is where you come from. There's no way you'll ever be elected. Number two, you'll be dished out a lot of insults that just the insults themselves will make you not think about vying. Just cultural differences and cultural beliefs in this part of the country. It's very hard because I am elected in the rural areas, not even in the urban, in the rural. So that was a fact, and it was a big issue. And it came out when I was campaigning, so much so that people would say, oh, we hear you're not married, and why don't you go get married? Then ask for votes where you got married or where you'll get married. And then others would be like, go get married first, then come back and talk to us because you're still young. And then others would be like, we hear you're married. Why don't you go look for votes where you're married and not here, because you're no longer part of here.
But again, packaging yourself well. Like I still want to thank Tim and I thank Collins, because George Collins always had his ears on the ground. So he could also get what was going on the ground, give me advice, and then I acted on that. But through him, I was able to stand in front of people, talk of my name, what I stand for, what I am, what I want for my people, what I intend to do for my people, and even mention the challenges or problems they are going through, which I have repeatedly said that differs from one area to the other.
We used a unique way of ensuring that these women were able to mobilize voters. And to us, what was more key is that we did find that it would be important to incorporate and to involve male champions. Because where we were doing this project, there is still a question about the tradition and the culture. And in most cases, many people still feel that women cannot be in elective or major positions within the community. So we identified male champions who are people who are respected, people who are opinion shapers despite the age variance that they have, and they were trained sufficiently to work very closely with the women aspirants so that they are able to deliver in terms of what they were pushing. And to us, this was very key in terms of this kind of a process. And I want to say that part of the work that the male champions also did was to also help the women guard the ballot during the election day. They ended up being their agents, and they were able to give feedback in terms of what was going to happen.
I've been doing some work with the Transform Empowerment for Action initiative as a resource person. And through this, Transform Empowerment for Action initiative trained us as male champions. And after the training, we had to identify with those whom we thought would really vie for these seats. The content of the training entailed one, strategy for campaigns for the women leaders. Two, identifying amongst the many who could come up, identifying the possible women or women who will or who can lead. 3 is ensuring that we interact, we create or build a rapport with the women leader and the community members or the electorate that would probably give her the votes. And the other one was the strategies for campaign and even countering opponents' strategies.
I come from a region where the first woman MP came from. She was also the first mayor of Kisumu County, and that is Grace Ogot. So leadership in women was not very new to me. So when I was deciding to support her, it was because I had learned, I already knew that women are able to do a good job in delivering the deliverables. I mean, I had some roles that I played. One was mobilizing the youths and arranging for forums where Honorable Judy would meet youths and share her agenda with them.
Personally, I normally like women leadership because it's not shrouded with a lot of corruption, for one, and 2, they are always mindful of their subjects, and 3 is that they have almost natural passion for development. Now, my main role in ensuring that Honorable Sally Okudo sailed through was to organize groups, that is the women group, the youth groups, the elder people, and even the church, so that they could see a sense in the importance of having a female leader as our MCA.
Dependence syndrome has been there ever since those days. That is how our leaders have been working with our people, and because of that, the poverty level is quite high in my ward.
I've just come to learn that people are different, and you deal with all kinds of people when you're in leadership. And you cannot get upset because for some reason they think you're superhuman, that you're not supposed to get upset, you're not supposed to lose your cool. And when you do this in front of them, then they start feeling that, nah, she ain't all that. You know, for some reason, people, I think if you're in a leadership position, people expect you to go above, rise above anything.
Yeah, so we are struggling, and it is not easy because all the problems, all the issues in your ward are heaped on you, beginning from health up to agriculture. And again, my ward members will always complain that they don't see me, I am lost. Yet if I stay looking at them and they're looking at me, we are just storying, nothing will come, because I have to knock different doors, different departments, go to agriculture, find out if whatever they said during public participation was captured and is it going to be given to them. Go to water, go to roads, go to health, go to education. And at the same time, you needed at the assembly for your committee meetings, you needed for plenary when, you know, we have debates. So it's never easy.
Wow. That assembly experience. I think that's where the challenge is. Dealing with other leaders who... Anyways, that's where the challenge is.
So far we have passed like 2 bills, but they are finance bills. I sit in the budget committee. So when we did our first supplementary budget, we passed a finance bill. And then recently, for this current financial year, we also passed another finance bill.
Now that the elections are over, the women have been elected, the male champions have been turned to civilian oversight. to fast track the promises in line with the manifestos that the women had. That is one thing that we've done. The other thing, electioneering period is a process. So it is up to now the women and the male champions to start charting agenda, moving towards 2022. So as we speak today, the male champions are organizing the community members to appear before development committee meetings, where these women are. They are also helping in terms of overseeing the implementation of various projects that these women did. And the other thing that we have learned is this process is a process that does not need to wait for an electioneering period to identify the women to participate in this kind of a process. So as we speak, Uraia has actually has had a meeting with the male champions, and they had a work plan in terms of how they want to improve and see how these women can perform better. The whole idea is that if the women that we supported can work so well, then I can bet that in 2022 we will have more women elected and making decisions and affecting different issues that are going to change this country.